I am Hannah Carter, once a celebrated biochemist whose name carried weight in the gleaming halls of Harper Pharmaceuticals. My life 6 years ago was a dream spun from ambition and love. I was married to James Harper, the charismatic heir to the Harper Empire, a pharmaceutical giant that shaped lives with its innovations. Our marriage was the envy of many. Lavish world travels to Paris and Tokyo, charity galas where we danced under chandeliers, and quiet evenings planning for the child we so desperately wanted. We were a power couple, bound by mutual respect, my scientific brilliance complementing his business acumen. But dreams, I learned, can shatter in a single night, and mine crumbled under a cold, relentless rain. It was 6 years ago, in the dead of a stormy November evening, when everything fell apart. James had been away on a business trip, and I was home, curled up with research papers, my mind buzzing with the promise of a new cancer treatment protocol. The door to our bedroom burst open, and there stood James, his face twisted with a rage I'd never seen before. In his hand, my phone glowed with text messages I'd never written, intimate, explicit exchanges with a man named Michael. My heart stopped. "How could you?" he roared, his voice trembling with betrayal. "In our bed, Hannah, while I was gone?" I tried to explain, my words stumbling over each other, but the evidence was damning. Messages from my number, a man's watch and hotel keycard found in my car, and a private investigator's report, arranged by James's childhood friend Nathan Brooks, claiming I'd been unfaithful for months. I begged him to listen. "James, it's not true. I don't know any Michael." But his eyes, once so warm, were now icy with distrust. Nathan appeared at his side, his expression one of false sympathy, and Olivia, Nathan's sister, hovered in the background, her smirk barely concealed. They had orchestrated this, I realized later, but in that moment I was defenseless against their lies. James's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "Get out of my house!" Before I could process the words, security guards materialized, their hands firm but impersonal as they escorted me down the grand staircase of our mansion. My suitcases, hastily packed by staff, were thrown into the trunk of my car. I stood in the driveway, my silk nightgown clinging to my skin as rain poured down, watching James on the balcony above, Nathan's hand on his shoulder like a puppeteer guiding his marionette. Nathan's faint smile felt like a blade twisting in my chest. He had one. Within hours, my world unraveled further. My bank accounts were frozen, my company access revoked, and my name was smeared across our social circle with whispers of infidelity. I drove aimlessly, the rain blurring my windshield, until I pulled into the parking lot of a 24-hour pharmacy. Shivering and alone, I bought a pregnancy test, my hands trembling as I carried it to the grimy public restroom. The fluorescent lights flickered as I stared at the 2 pink lines, confirming what I'd suspected but hadn't dared believe. I was pregnant with twins. Noah and Ava, as I would later name them, were growing inside me, a flicker of hope in a world that had just collapsed. I pressed my hand to my stomach, whispering promises to my unborn children. "I'll protect you no matter what." But the blows kept coming. I drove to James's office the next morning, desperate to tell him about the pregnancy, but security blocked my path. "Mr. Harper doesn't want to see you," the guard said, avoiding my eyes. "He says, given your infidelity, he has no reason to believe the child is his." The words hit like a physical strike. I begged them to relay my message, but when the guard returned, his face was grim. He insists on a paternity test after the birth. Through the glass doors, I saw Nathan watching from the lobby, his expression unreadable but triumphant. By nightfall, my credit cards were canceled, my closest friends, part of James's elite circle, stopped answering my calls, and I was sleeping in my car in a Walmart parking lot, 7 weeks pregnant and utterly alone. The rain continued to fall, mirroring the tears I could no longer hold back, as I realized the depth of the betrayal orchestrated against me. Nathan and Olivia hadn't just taken my marriage, they'd stripped me of everything, or so they thought. But in that dark, cold car, a fire began to burn within me. I would survive for my children, and one day I would make them see the truth. If you're listening right now, tell me, which country are you tuning in from? Drop it in the comments below. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I highly recommend you do it now. These aren't just everyday family stories, they're real, emotional journeys packed with deep life lessons you can actually apply to your own life. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss a story that might change the way you see things. With nowhere to turn, I spent nights curled up in the backseat of my car, the cold seeping through the windows as I battled relentless morning sickness and a grief that clawed at my soul. The Walmart parking lot became my refuge, its harsh fluorescent lights casting shadows over my tear-streaked face. Each wave of nausea reminded me of the twins growing inside me, Noah and Ava, my only anchor in a storm of betrayal. I felt broken, stripped of my home, my career, and the love I'd once trusted, but their tiny heartbeats, imagined in the quiet of those lonely nights, kept me fighting. I whispered to them through chattering teeth, "We'll make it somehow." One early morning, as I retched beside my car, a sharp voice cut through my despair. "You're either pregnant or dying, dear, and either way you need help." I looked up, bleary-eyed, to see Margaret Hayes, a widow with a stern face but kind eyes, studying me with startling directness. A retired nurse, she'd lost her daughter to cancer years before, and something in my crumpled form must have stirred her compassion. She didn't wait for my answer, just took my arm and led me to her modest home, a haven of faded wallpaper and warm quilts. "This was my Lily's room," she said, opening the door to a small, cozy space with a single bed and a window overlooking a garden. "Stay as long as you need." Exhausted and overwhelmed, I collapsed onto the mattress, tears of gratitude mixing with the ache of all I'd lost. It was in Margaret's home that I met Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a force of nature who ran a community clinic for those the system forgot. She arrived one evening, her lab coat rumpled from a long day, her eyes bright with purpose. Margaret had mentioned my background, and Sarah's curiosity led her to quiz me over a cup of strong coffee. "A biochemist from Harper Pharmaceuticals? Your work on cancer protocols was groundbreaking," she said, her gaze piercing. She saw past my disheveled state to the scientist I'd been and offered me a lifeline. "I have a lab, a secret one, in my barn. Join me." I followed her to a hidden sanctuary, a state-of-the-art setup tucked behind hay bales, gleaming with equipment and free from corporate greed. It was a place where science could breathe, and so could I. In that barn, my purpose flickered back to life. Each experiment, each late night poring over data, fueled a resolve stronger than my pain. I swore to protect Noah and Ava, to give them a future where they'd never know the cold of a parking lot. And I vowed to expose the truth, Nathan and Olivia's web of lies, the fabricated evidence that tore me from James, not for revenge, but for justice. For my children, for the patients endangered by their schemes, I would fight. Margaret and Sarah became my pillars, and in their belief, I found the strength to rise again. While I pieced my life back together in the shadow of Margaret's home and Sarah's clandestine lab, Nathan and Olivia were weaving a darker web at Harper Pharmaceuticals. From the fragments I later uncovered, their plan was as ruthless as it was meticulous. Nathan, as CFO, had burrowed deep into the company's operations, falsifying trial data for a flagship cancer drug, irinotecan, to conceal its dangerous side effects, liver damage, heart complications, lives at risk for profit. He doctored reports with surgical precision, ensuring the board and James saw only what he wanted them to see. Meanwhile, Olivia, with her calculated charm, coiled herself around James, her soft whispers and staged affection filling the void I'd left behind. She played the role of the perfect partner, attending galas on his arm, her designer gowns masking a predator's intent. Together, they manipulated James, clouding his judgment, making him forget the woman he'd once loved me. Their cruelty reached its peak when they set the date for James and Olivia's wedding, the 6th anniversary of the night I was cast out. It wasn't coincidence. It was a deliberate, vicious taunt, a final erasure of my existence from James's life. I learned of it through a Society page article, the headline mocking me with its elegance. Harper heir to wed Olivia Brooks in spring ceremony. The date burned into my mind, a wound reopened, but it also steeled my resolve. They thought they'd broken me, but they didn't know I was building something stronger from the ashes. Over those 6 years, I poured my heart and soul into creating Aurora Pharmaceuticals. With Sarah's seed funding and her network of industry renegades, I transformed her barn laboratory into a hub of innovation. My nights were spent hunched over microscopes, refining a cancer treatment that was everything rhinotectin wasn't: safe, effective, and affordable. Aurora's mission wasn't just about science. It was about restoring integrity to an industry Nathan had corrupted. Our first drug, a breakthrough with minimal side effects, began to chip away at Harper's market share, hospital by hospital. I named the company Aurora after the dawn, a symbol of the light I was determined to bring to my children's lives and to the patients who deserved better. Noah and Ava, my twins, were my anchor through it all. They grew into bright, curious children, their hazel eyes a mirror of James's, a bittersweet reminder of the love we'd once shared. 5. Noah was introspective, his room filled with rock collections and geology books, while Ava was a whirlwind, her walls plastered with star charts and telescope sketches. I raised them in a modest apartment, funded by pawning my wedding ring, a painful but necessary sacrifice. Despite the ache in my heart, I never hid their father from them. I kept a memory box tucked under their bunk beds, filled with faded photos of James and me, newspaper clippings of his achievements, even our wedding announcement. "Your dad is brilliant," I'd tell them, swallowing the lump in my throat, "but he made a mistake." We all do. I wanted them to know their heritage, to understand they were loved, even if their father didn't know they existed. Every milestone, first steps, first words, their laughter as they chased fireflies, came with a pang of what James had missed. Pain of his betrayal never fully faded, a dull ache that flared when I saw his face in industry magazines, Olivia clinging to his arm. But I channeled that hurt into my work, into building Aurora into a formidable rival. By the time the twins were 6, our drug had secured contracts with major hospitals, undercutting Harper's prices and saving lives their greed had endangered. I was no longer the broken woman in the rain-soaked nightgown. I was Hannah Carter, founder of Aurora Pharmaceuticals, a mother who'd fought for her children, and a scientist ready to reclaim the truth. As the date of James and Olivia's wedding loomed, I knew the time had come to step out of the shadows, not for revenge, but for justice, for Noah and Ava, and for the legacy I was building. The 6th anniversary of my exile arrived, a date etched in my memory with the sting of betrayal. It was also the day James Harper and Olivia Brooks chose to wed, a calculated insult as deliberate as the lies that had torn my life apart. Their wedding was the event of the season, held on the sprawling, rose-strewn lawn of the Harper estate, where 300 of society's elite gathered under a canopy of white silk and crystal chandeliers. The air hummed with anticipation, string quartets weaving melodies through the warm spring breeze. I had spent 6 years rebuilding from nothing, and now, as the founder of Aurora Pharmaceuticals, the mother of Noah and Ava, and the keeper of truths Nathan and Olivia thought buried, I was ready to step back into the light, not for revenge, but for justice. I chose a dramatic entrance, one that would sear itself into their memories. As the bridal march began, the distant roar of helicopter blades sliced through the music, drawing every eye skyward. My sleek black helicopter descended onto the estate's helipad, its downdraft scattering rose petals like confetti across the manicured lawn. I stepped out in a tailored navy suit, my caramel hair catching the wind, my heart pounding but my resolve unshakable. Beside me were Noah and Ava, 6 years old and dressed impeccably, Noah in a miniature blazer, Ava in a pale blue dress, their hazel eyes gleaming with a confidence I'd nurtured through years of love. They held my hands, my anchors, as we walked toward the altar, every step deliberate, every gaze fixed on us. Crowd of 300 froze, their champagne flutes forgotten, as whispers rippled through the guests. "Those eyes," I heard someone murmur, "they're James's eyes." The resemblance was undeniable, a mirror of the man standing at the altar, his face draining of color. Olivia, resplendent in a gown that cost more than most people's homes, clutched James's arm, her diamond bracelet glinting like a shackle. "What is this?" she hissed, her voice rising to a shriek. "Who is she?" But James was silent, his gaze locked on Noah and Ava, recognition dawning like a storm breaking. I stopped at the edge of the seating area, the twins steady beside me. "James," I said, my voice clear and cutting through the chaos. "Meet your children, Noah and Ava. The ones you never knew existed when you threw me out 6 years ago." Collective gasp was audible, a wave of shock rolling through the crowd. James's mother, Eleanor, pressed a hand to her mouth, tears welling as she saw her grandchildren for the first time. His father, Richard, stood, his face pale with disbelief. Olivia's composure shattered. "She's lying," she screamed, lunging toward me. "She's a fraud. James, tell them." But James remained frozen, his eyes darting between the twins and me, a man caught in a truth he couldn't deny. Nathan pushed forward, his face a mask of rage and fear. "Security, remove this woman," he barked, but I held up a hand, my voice icy. "I wouldn't, Nathan. Not unless you want the world to know about the $80 million you've embezzled from Harper Pharmaceuticals, or the falsified trial data for rhinotectin that's been endangering lives." His bravado faltered, his eyes darting nervously. The guests murmured, sensing the unraveling of a scandal. Then Dr. Sarah Mitchell stepped forward from behind me, her presence commanding as she held up a tablet. "I have the evidence," she said, her voice steady. "Fabricated side effect profiles, altered trial results. The FDA can have it tonight or next week, your choice." Before Nathan could respond, the sound of boots on gravel interrupted the standoff. 2 federal agents in dark suits emerged, their badges flashing in the sunlight. "Nathan Brooks, Olivia Brooks," one announced. "You're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy." Crowd erupted in chaos as the agents moved swiftly, handcuffing a protesting Nathan, whose polished facade crumbled into panic. Olivia struggled, her gown tangling as she screamed, "This is absurd! James, do something!" But James didn't move, his world collapsing under the weight of the truth. As the agents escorted Nathan and Olivia away, the wedding dissolved into a spectacle of scandalized whispers and fleeing guests. I turned to the crowd, my voice unwavering. 6 years ago, Nathan and Olivia framed me for infidelity, forging messages and planting evidence to remove me from James's life and Harper Pharmaceuticals. I was 7 weeks pregnant when I was cast out, and I've raised Noah and Ava alone. DNA evidence confirming their paternity has been filed with the family court. I paused, letting the words sink in, my gaze locking with James's. "You chose to believe lies over the woman you vowed to love. These are the consequences." James staggered, his face a portrait of devastation. He knelt before Noah and Ava, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm so sorry," he whispered, tears brimming. "I didn't know about you." "I would have," his words faltered, overwhelmed by the years he'd lost. Noah, cautious but curious, peered from behind my leg while Ava, ever bold, stepped forward, her small face serious. "Mom says you're really smart," she said, her voice cutting through the tension. "But you made a big mistake. Are you going to do better now?" Her question, so innocent yet piercing, hung in the air like a challenge. James's shoulders shook, his head bowing under the weight of her words. I watched him, the man I'd once loved, now a stranger grappling with his failure. Crowd dwindled, some lingering to witness the drama, but I felt no triumph, only a quiet resolve. Noah and Ava deserved to know their father, and James deserved to face the truth. As we walked back to the helicopter, the twins' hands in mine, Sarah beside me with her damning evidence, I knew this was only the beginning. The real battle lay ahead, not just exposing Nathan and Olivia, but building a future where my children could thrive and where justice, not vengeance, would define my legacy. The fallout from that dramatic wedding day left Harper Pharmaceuticals teetering on the edge of collapse. Nathan and Olivia's arrests sent shockwaves through the industry, their embezzlement and falsified data threatening thousands of jobs and the patients who relied on Harper's medications. I could have walked away, letting the empire James once cherished crumble under the weight of their betrayal. But I didn't. Destruction wasn't my goal, restoration was. I proposed a merger between Aurora Pharmaceuticals and Harper, a plan to combine my company's innovative ethical research with Harper's vast infrastructure. It wasn't about saving James. It was about protecting the employees who'd been caught in the crossfire and ensuring patients had access to safe treatments. The board, stunned by my revelation as Hannah Carter, the wronged ex-wife turned competitor, accepted the proposal with cautious optimism. In the months that followed, James and I navigated a delicate dance of co-parenting and corporate collaboration. He was no longer the man who'd cast me out in a fit of blind rage. Guilt had humbled him and fatherhood reshaped him. He spent hours with Noah and Ava, learning their quirks with a patience I hadn't thought possible. Noah, my quiet geologist in training, would light up when James brought him rare mineral samples, their heads bent together over a magnifying glass. Ava, my starry-eyed dreamer, dragged James to her telescope, pointing out constellations with the fervor of a future astronomer. Watching them, I felt a complex mix of emotions: pride in my children's resilience, sorrow for the years James had missed, and a quiet relief that they were building something real with their father. I too was changing. For years, I'd carried the weight of betrayal, my heart guarded behind walls of self-reliance. But Dr. Ethan Mitchell, Sarah's son, began to chip away at those defenses. A pediatric surgeon with a gentle smile and a knack for making Noah and Ava laugh, Ethan brought a warmth I thought I'd lost forever. Our friendship grew slowly, rooted in shared moments, helping Noah with his rock collection, cheering at Ava's science fair, or stealing quiet conversations over coffee at Sarah's clinic. I hesitated, wary of opening my heart again, but Ethan's steady presence felt like a safe harbor after years of storms. The twins' 8th birthday was a milestone, a celebration of how far we'd come. They'd chosen a dinosaur theme, Noah's latest obsession, and James's new home, a cozy house with a sprawling garden, became the perfect backdrop. Our extended family gathered, James's parents, Richard and Eleanor, still marveling at their grandchildren, Margaret Hayes, her sharp wit softened by love for the twins, Sarah, the architect of my second chance, and Ethan, now a fixture in our unconventional circle. The garden was transformed into a prehistoric wonderland, with fossil-shaped cookies, a volcano that erupted baking soda lava, and a dinosaur piñata that sent the children into fits of laughter. As the sun set, Noah tugged at my hand, his serious eyes fixed on me. "Mom, we need the family photo." It's tradition. That simple request, born of the rituals I'd created to give my children stability, stopped me in my tracks. We gathered by the garden wall, James and I in the center, Noah and Ava beaming between us, Ethan, Sarah, Margaret, and James's parents arranged around us. Ava, ever the director, set the camera timer, shouting, "Hurry, everyone!" As the shutter clicked, I felt a lump in my throat. This wasn't the family I'd imagined when I married James, nor the one I'd envisioned when I was alone, pregnant, and homeless. But it was real, forged through pain, resilience, and a choice to build rather than destroy. Later that evening, as the twins slept, their dinosaur costumes draped over chairs, James sent me the photo with a message. Not what we imagined, but perhaps better than we planned. I stared at the image, Noah's shy smile, Ava's confident grin, the adults around them united by love for these extraordinary children. My heart swelled, not with the bitterness I'd once carried, but with a quiet triumph. My revenge wasn't the ruin of James or Harper Pharmaceuticals. It was creating a life so vibrant, so full of purpose, that it transformed the ashes of betrayal into something beautiful, a legacy of strength, love, and redemption. Reflecting on this journey, I've learned lessons that have shaped me, and I hope they resonate with you. First, resilience is born from purpose. In my darkest moments, sleeping in my car, pregnant and alone, it was my love for Noah and Ava that gave me the strength to keep going. Find your why, and it will carry you through the impossible. Second, forgiveness is not weakness, it's power. Forgiving James didn't erase the pain, but it freed me to focus on my children and my mission, not resentment. Third, community can rebuild what betrayal breaks. Margaret, Sarah, and later Ethan became my family when I had none, reminding me that we are never truly alone if we accept help. Fourth, truth is a patient ally. I could have lashed out years earlier, but waiting, gathering evidence, and building Aurora allowed me to expose Nathan and Olivia's lies with undeniable impact. Finally, creation is the ultimate response to destruction. Instead of tearing down James's world, I built Aurora, raised my children, and crafted a life that spoke louder than any vengeance could. These lessons were hard-won, carved from sleepless nights when the weight of betrayal kept me staring at the ceiling, from tears shed in the cold glow of a pharmacy bathroom, and from moments when despair whispered I'd never rise again. But in those shadows, I learned a truth that changed me. Our darkest moments don't shape who we are, our choices in those moments do. I chose to fight, not with anger, but with love and purpose. I built a life for Noah and Ava, my twins whose curious minds and fearless hearts light up my world. Their laughter, their questions, Noah's fascination with rocks, Ava's dreams of stars, are proof that even the deepest pain can bloom into something extraordinary. This family, messy and unconventional, stands as my testament to that truth, a mosaic of resilience pieced together from broken dreams. Looking back, I see a woman who refused to let betrayal write her ending. I was once a shivering figure in a rain-soaked nightgown, cast out and forgotten, but I became Hannah Carter, scientist, mother, creator of Aurora Pharmaceuticals. My story isn't one of vengeance, though it would have been easy to burn it all down. Instead, it's about building something stronger from the ashes, a company that saves lives, children who thrive, and a fragile but real connection with James, their father. Every step was a choice to rise above, to turn pain into power, to love fiercely despite loss. Noah and Ava, with their sparkling eyes and boundless potential, are my greatest victory, a reminder that redemption is possible when we choose creation over destruction. My journey from a parking lot to a penthouse, from heartbreak to healing, has sparked something in you. I hope you'll carry it forward. Let it remind you that your struggles, no matter how heavy, don't define your story. This tale of resilience and the triumph of love over vengeance has given you a new lens on your own challenges. Please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Your support helps share stories that inspire us to find strength in our darkest hours, to build something beautiful from ruin, and to believe that even the most shattered paths can lead to a future brighter than we dared dream. Thank you for walking this road with me. What will you create from your own ashes?